So one of my favorite quotes from your book, Daybreak, having to do with belief in our officials, in our government. You wrote, Ronald Reagan made, quote, "I'm from the government and I'm here to help you," sound like a line from a horror movie just before an axe comes through the wall.
He did indeed, which has led to, it contributed to the rise of this libertarian idea that, you know, government is bad, non-government is good, even in cases like, you know, Medicare wasting 3% and the sickness industry, as I call it, wasting 30%. You know, if it's not government, it's okay. I don't want to pay for someone else's health care through the government, but I'm happy to pay for multi-million-dollar executive salaries and advertising and waste and 10 times the bureaucracy, as long as it's not in the government. This ideology is pervasive. And here I am talking about what's wrong with our government, and I have a book to explain to people how it's even worse than they think, you know, but unless we take all of the powers that have accumulated in the presidency and put them in the Congress, and unless we clean up the Congress so that it represents us, we don't have a chance. You know, we cannot protect the environment without a government. We cannot protect public safety without a government. We cannot have a decent educational system without a government. And so I work with a lot of libertarians on opposing wars, and we agree to disagree on everything else. And you know, sadly, our government misrepresents majority opinion, which is often very different from libertarian opinion on so many issues, that everybody's fed up with the government. And Congress is no more popular than car salesmen or Fox News pundits. But if we don't take the power and put it back in the Congress and force the Congress to use it to represent us, you know, short of getting some completely different system of running our society, we don't have a chance.
You also have an interesting section of the book questioning if we even need to have a president and sort of weighing that out. And what would that do? I mean, we're so hooked into this idea of, you know, these three branches of government and it balancing out, which is a huge question if that's even happening. But what would that look like to you?
Well, it wasn't supposed to be balanced, right? The first branch of our government, the Congress, was supposed to have the vast bulk of the power. Right. And the executive was supposed to execute their will and serve as commander-in-chief when they said there would be a war and funded it. And we are so far away from that for a Congress member to suggest that Congress might even be equal to the president is just outrageous extremism.
The writings of Madison, Mason, all of these founders that a lot of those on the conservative, on the right side, like to sort of invoke, right, and how much fear they had of the imperial presidency, correct?
Oh, they were horrified of elected despotism, of electing a king and then another king and then another king. And, you know, we always think that the solution to any president is to wait 4 years and elect, you know, someone different, the better of the two lousy choices we'll get in that election, and that'll solve everything. That was not what they wanted. They thought we would use impeachment, in particular of presidents, much more frequently than we do. And there was no more egregious demand for it than the Bush-Cheney presidency. And there was a problem there in that you had to impeach 2 people because we've allowed vice presidents to engage in executive branch activities, if not to run the empire. And so, you know, I would certainly get rid of the vice president as someone engaged in running the government and have him or her in reserve. But, you know, I wouldn't get rid of the president either. But I would encourage people to think about getting rid of the president and what it would mean to think of Congress as running the country. I would get rid of the Senate. That's another conversation. But the legislature, in whatever form, is a better way to represent us and to make laws. And I wouldn't want a president to be able to do the things that people imagined President Obama would do for them. I wouldn't want it. Another president could undo it. You know, when President Obama has said with Bush's signing statements that rewrite laws. Well, my lawyers will look at those, if any come up, and we'll decide if I want to throw one of those out or not. And President Obama writes his own new law altering signing statements. And then the next president presumably will pick which of Bush and Obama's signing statements to keep and which ones to throw out. And so you have each president deciding what's the law from here on forward. You know, I'm not going to like every future president, you know, but I'm going to have to worship every future president if we're going to leave those kind of powers there for them. And so, you know, going back to having Congress make the laws, Congress approve the treaties, Congress approve the appointments, people who have been approved as appointed heads running the government, Congress raising and spending every dime, and our government operating in the open without these vast secret budgets and secret agencies. And then you would still need a president. You would still need someone to check abuses by the Congress. Mm-hmm. Congress isn't going to be angels either. And this was the genius of having checks between branches. The president should be there with the power of veto. Mm-hmm. The president should be there able to draft treaties and make appointments and so forth. You need that separation of powers. But the president was supposed to be the weaker branch and is now all-encompassing. Mm-hmm.
Well, I want to reference your book once again, Daybreak, Undoing the Imperial Presidency and Forming a More Perfect Union. It's really been a pleasure spending this time with you. And I also want to remind folks that they can go to davidswanson.org, correct, to find out, a little plug there, to find out more about your terrific book and also appearances and other writings of yours. And thanks so much.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Okay.